Prince Yi-woo, a member of the Korean royal family, went viral in 2022 for a variety of reasons, namely his good looks, his subtle personal rejection of Japanese colonialism, the way he died, and his uncanny resemblance to a very famous K-pop singer. This is his story. Yi-woo was born on November 15, 1912, in what is now Seoul, South Korea. By this time, both the Joseon dynasty and the Korean Empire had been dismantled, and Korea was under the control of Japan as an annexed colony, and his role in history was already being written. His real father was Prince Yi-gang, the fifth son of Emperor Gojong, but at the age of 5, he was adopted to be the heir of Lee Junyoung, the nephew of Emperor Gojong and the lord of Unhyang-gung, or Unhyang Palace. Lee Junyoung died without a male heir, and as a grandson of Emperor Gojong, Yi-woo was adopted to keep Lee Junyoung's royal cadet branch alive and give way to a possible future ruler. Because of this adoption and the rules of royal titles under the Japanese occupation concerning his adoptive father, he was given the same royal status as his real father, Prince Yi-gang. At the time of the occupation, many Koreans, including some Korean royals, were sent to Japan for education or work. It is important to note that essentially, as a colony of Japan, Koreans did not have a choice in these decisions if the Japanese government mandated them. Yi-woo was sent to the Gakushuin Peer School to be educated alongside Japanese nobles from elementary school all the way to high school. He completed his education in Japan, but always maintained his Korean identity and a subdued disapproval of the Japanese influence in Korea. This was later corroborated by Japanese imperial family members, members of the Korean royal family, and many people who were in the same circles as the prince. In an effort to assimilate the Japanese and Korean royal families, a marriage was arranged for Yi-woo by the Japanese government to a Japanese noble, but he refused and later championed an effort to marry a Korean noble, a woman by the name of Pak Chan-ju. There was a proverbial tug-of-war match between the politicians and royalty trying to get Yi-woo to marry into Japanese nobility, but he eventually won and his marriage was approved. Japan's Emperor Hirohito formally approved the marriage, and they were married on May 3, 1935, in Tokyo. Following their marriage, they welcomed their eldest son, Yi-chung, in 1936, and their second son, Yi-jong, in 1940. Yi-woo graduated from the 45th class of the Japanese Military Academy in 1935 and began 1 year of military training in artillery, and began his career in the Japanese Army in 1936 at the 8th Artillery Regiment in Tokyo. In 1937, the Sino-Japanese War erupted between China and Japan, with his regiment being assigned to Manchuria. After a year, Yi-woo was promoted to the rank of captain and was transferred to the role of an artillery instructor and later entered an army university. He graduated in 1941 at the advent of World War II, which would drastically change the direction his life would take. At the beginning of World War II, he would briefly take up royal duties and toured the fierce Pacific combat zones in Malaysia and the Philippines as a member of the imperial family. After this, he would later be transferred to Taiyuan, Shanxi province in China and served as an officer in the 1st Army Command, which was there as reinforcement for the Japanese forces fighting in Manchuria. He held this post until near the end of the war in 1945. On May 8, 1945, the Allied forces in Europe had declared victory over Japanese wartime allies Germany and Italy. With the surrender of its allies, Japan was the only Axis power still standing, and they knew that assets would all be pointed to the Pacific. At this point in the war, Japan knew that with much of the Pacific taken back by Allied forces, a mainland invasion was likely. To prepare for this, many forces were ordered back to the mainland to prepare for a domestic defense. The idea came to be known as Operation Ketsugo, which would call all Japanese citizens to defend their country to the death, in a bid to cause such huge losses to the Allied forces that they would agree to an armistice rather than a total surrender. Before returning to Japan to take up post as an educational military advisor, Ii-woo returned to Korea for a short time, where he fell ill. Right after recovering and before leaving back to Japan, his son suddenly also fell ill, and he requested 1 month to care for him. In early July, he received his final orders to Hiroshima, and he was noted as saying, "If I go to Hiroshima now, it will be like dying." He departed from Korea to Hiroshima, leaving his family behind. Ii-woo worked as education staff with the 2nd General Army in Hiroshima for 1 month. On the warm, clear morning of August 6, 1945, Ii-woo was going to work mounted on a horse with 2 mounted military police escorts. That morning, the United States Army Air Force's B-29 Superfortress, Enola Gay, dropped the Little Boy, the first atomic bomb in human history, onto Hiroshima. After the bombing, the military attaché to Ii-woo, Major Hiroshi Yoshinari, learned of the chaos in Hiroshima and immediately dispatched a special rescue team to locate the prince. After relentless search efforts, the search team found the prince around 700 meters from the hypnocenter of the explosion at around 4 p.m., a full 8 hours after the bombing. Ii-woo was found injured with burns but still alive. He was rushed to a nearby naval hospital where he later regained consciousness. Miraculously, when he regained consciousness, he expressed his relief that he was alive, and medical professionals even determined he had not suffered any real serious trauma. With the little boy being the first nuclear weapon ever detonated, there was much confusion not only about the capabilities of its destruction, but also the side effects of neutron and gamma radiation on human beings. The now accepted distance for lethal radiation poisoning from Little Boy is considered to be at 1.3 kilometers from the hypnocenter. Ii-woo was located 700 meters away, putting him well within that range. The next day, on August 7th at 5 a.m., Prince Ii-woo passed away in the Naval Hospital in Hiroshima. While suspected to be radiation poisoning, the actual cause of his death is not for certain, and his death was simply registered as a victim of the atomic bomb. On August 15, 1945, Japan formally surrendered to the Allied forces and World War II officially ended. While the war ended, the story of Ii-woo would continue on for many years in regards to his death and the legacy he left behind in history. On the day that the war ended, a makeshift funeral for Ii-woo was held in Dongdaemun Undongjang, or the Seoul Stadium in Korea. His formal grave is located in Namyangju, Gyeonggi-do in South Korea, which is where many of the Chosun royal family are buried. Controversy surrounding his status was raised when in 1959, Prince Ii-woo was enshrined in a controversial Japanese shrine known for the enshrinement of Japanese soldiers throughout history, many of which who were convicted war criminals of all classes. Despite the opposition of Ii-woo's enshrinement by his family, his own son, Ii-chung, was invited to the ceremony. Ii-chung expressed his disappointment, dissatisfaction, and frustration publicly about his father being associated with the shrine. Since 1959, Prince Ii-woo has remained a footnote in the broader scope of Korean history as a minor Korean royal, overshadowed by the turbulent end of the Joseon dynasty, the Japanese occupation, and the Korean War. However, in 2023, Prince Ii-woo re-emerged from the chapters of history in a rather interesting way. As Korean culture and influence exploded around the world, Korean and international netizens made an interesting discovery. Prince Ii-woo held an uncanny resemblance to a member of a popular K-pop idol group EXO's Suho. Comparisons between the two went viral online, with netizens noting not only the resemblance between the two, but Ii-woo's good looks in general. This led to many looking deeper into the history of Prince Ii-woo and what he represents in the annals of Korean history. Under extremely rare circumstances, An individual who has been dead for 77 years went viral for something as simple as having a contemporary popular singer doppelganger. While it is rather simple on the surface, this viral anomaly led to a whole new generation of people, many which have never been taught about these figures in history, to learn about those who have played important and noteworthy roles. Prince Yi-woo will be regarded as more than just a minor Korean royal in history. Despite many having a rather negative view of the Korean royal family, Yi-woo is regarded by some as a rather tragic figure who was forced to serve a nation that was not his own. A person whose refusal to marry into Japanese nobility and desire to preserve his Korean identity was one small way he could show his resistance to the effects of colonialism. His story lives between history and emotion in the pages of history books.